Now, I don't want to scare you when you look at these empty shelves or partial empty shelves. There is plenty of food in our grocery stores. There's plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables. But when I went over to get some corn dogs from my husband, as you see, there was no corn dogs, none to be had. And there was quite a few other things that were out in this one. I was a little shocked to find the whole thing empty. And I don't know if all these items came from the same outlet or not. Chicken breasts were missing, but you could go get fresh chicken breasts, but I can tell you it was super expensive. And this area has been empty for at least almost 2 months. Sometimes they have a few, and sometimes they don't. Today they had none. I can't believe that this area has struggled for 2 months. That is a very long time to be out of one item. Well, not one item, but in basically the same type of things. Stuff to do with Lunchables and stuff for the kids' lunches. Why they've been out for such a long time, as you can see on each side of this area, you can get luncheon meat to make sandwiches, but you can't get Lunchables. I don't know what it is. Certain items you just can't hardly find, or they're very low on inventory. This is not the only thing that has issues, but as you can see, there were things on each side of this area, but I couldn't get anything in here. So there must be some kind of a breakdown on where it came from this warehouse, and it must have to come from the same warehouse, or because it's the same thing every week. Very, very low, or like this week, none, zero. So I will move on. This area over here has been low for also months. And of course, I've told you there's Gatorade there, as you see, but not a lot. It's just amazing the things that are missing. The chip aisle was hard to find stuff too. Because the chips that I normally want to buy, they've been out of for about a month also. But there are chips there, but not the ones I want. So, of course, I didn't buy any because we probably shouldn't be eating them anyway because of the calories and the salt content. So, if it's not something I really want, I just don't buy. We don't buy Gatorade. We don't buy Powerade. So, this isn't even affecting us at all. But the juice aisle, now there is some juices there. There was some juice boxes this week. There are some weeks there's none. My granddaughter said that she hasn't been able to find them in her store for weeks. I told her I have a case over here. If she wants to leave me 6 and take the rest of the case back to her house, that's fine also. It's amazing the things you can't find and the things you can find. You just never know what you're going to find when you go. And that's what I tell my husband. I'll make sure we have food in the house, and we will. But I don't want anyone to panic like everything is terrible. It's not terrible yet, but I advise everyone to have at least some food ahead because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. The cat and dog aisle is getting better. There's still some empty spaces, but I noticed there was no cases of Little Caesars this week, but there was individual cans. But I still have plenty of dog food, so there's no reason to panic. And that is the most main reason why you should buy ahead. For you're not panicking when you find shelves empty or something you want or need. Now I'm going to share with you on my grocery deal today what I bought and how many of those items I couldn't find last year. Now this is what I bought for this week's grocery shopping. Now I did buy a little more than what you're seeing here. I'm not sharing what I bought for the refrigerator because they're not really thing to do with prepping. Things for the refrigerator only last for a few days. But I am sharing what I did pick up for my pantry. Some of this I am replacing what we've eaten. Some of them I'm just getting a few more cans ahead. Now, as you can see, we have done really well at keeping things done. I am now putting myself on $100 a week for groceries. Last week I only spent $60, so I had an extra $40 left over. So I put the $40 in an envelope and I put another $100 with it for this week. Now, I did stock up on quite a few items, and my bill did go over 100. I went to 120. But because I had 40 left from the week before, we were still in that $100 a week and 400 for the month. So I'm proud of myself so far, putting myself on a budget. Most of these items I am picking up are replacements for what I have. The beef gravy that I just bought, was on sale, so I bought a little bit extra, and we're replacing what we've used. The cream of celery soup we've been replacing also. The beans were a replacement because I've already used up all my beans and I'm ready to start over again. I should be able to make at least 2 pots of soup out of that one bag. And the raviolis is something I had to replace, and I got 2 extras. I bought a bunch of dry fruit to put in the pantry, all new, and I'm not replacing, I just didn't have. I bought some canned V8 just to have something for a quick breakfast and something that will be good for me. The applesauce is something else new for the pantry. I listened to one of my awesome friends about oatmeal cookies with applesauce and oatmeal, and now with the dry fruit and the oatmeal that I already had, and that I can make those cookies. The Miracle Whip I had to replace because we used one up. The soup is always an issue because, of course, we're always eating. Some of them were replacements and some were just adding to the supply because we want to make sure. And the chili was another one that was something new for the pantry. I'm still trying to make sure my pantry has a lot of new and different items every week. So this week it was the canned chili, and it was the dried fruit and the applesauce. Those are things that have not been in my pantry. And of course, we need to have something tasty for my husband to eat. So I got him some little sandwich cookies and a little bit of a Halloween theme. So hopefully he will enjoy and we're not struggling. You can't be living on a constant budget and not have anything neat and nice to eat. My husband likes Cocoa Pebbles, and they had a large box of it on sale, and I said, oh, let me buy it. We bought 9 boxes of cereal recently, so we still have plenty of cereal. But like I keep saying, I want to make sure that I always have a certain amount of food in that pantry and it's full at all times. And if I get too much in there, I'll just have to put some of it off to the side until I can replenish it in. But I think we're doing pretty good keeping the pantry pretty well stocked. As you see, I do buy a lot of Campbell products because they were almost impossible to find last year for like 4 months. The gravy was a very hard thing to find. The soup was impossible for 4 months. So anytime I have a chance, I try to make sure those items are always put in my pantry. The soup never was a problem last year. There was always beans, so I'm assuming we're not going to have a big problem. But I'm still making sure there's plenty in there at all times. As soon as we use one bag up, I go buy another bag. And if I start seeing things get a little low, I'll probably buy 2 bags. But there's no sense in panicking, and that's what I tell everyone. We're not at the end of days. We're not dying. We're not starving to death. Don't go in there and panic buy. But please, spend a little extra money each week. And you can even do it when you're on a budget. Now, I realize my budget may be higher or lower than most. There's just me and my husband. We don't need a massive amount of food for 2 people. But on the other hand, I need to make sure we have something constantly in this house to eat, because last year was a very scary time for me. There was time, well, I know it's hard to believe, but one time I went and there was 0 meat in the meat counter. That was the most terrifying day of my life when I saw that. So even though I saw that one counter or whatever, frozen section totally empty, I didn't really panic. We're just not going to have corn dogs maybe for a couple of weeks or maybe even a couple of months. As the Lunchables have been out for 2 months already where I live. And the juices have been down for almost 2 months. But because I know it's difficult, I have plenty of juice in my pantry. I have plenty of Kool-Aid in my pantry. And I have plenty of cereal and plenty of soup. And I bought canned fruit, and I went over to Dollar Tree and I was happened to be there, so I bought that canned fruit to see if I liked it. It's not a lot cheaper than Stater Brothers, but it's 20 cents a can cheaper. And when I bought 4, that was 80 cents a can. If I don't like it, I won't buy it again. You try out some of these store brand or off brands, and sometimes they're great and sometimes they're not. Sometimes you even like them better than the name brands. So you just keep yourself stocked up. That's all I'm saying. Don't panic. Don't buy a massive amount of food if you're not going to be using it. I'm not going to buy a massive amount. I'm only buying what we reuse. It may seem like there's a lot of soup and gravy there, but most of those I've already reused up. I'm replacing the cream of celery soup. I'm replacing the minestrone soup, and I'm replacing half of the beef gravy. Half of that we have already used. The chili is something new for the pantry, and the dried fruits are new, because it's also important to keep a great variety of different things in your pantry, for you don't get bored. But don't buy more than you're going to be using in 6 months, because you don't want it to go bad. When I cleaned out my pantry, I had a couple bags of things that had went bad. So I need to stay on top of it better. I probably will rearrange my pantry every other month to make sure all the new cans are at the back and all the old cans are at the front. That was where my problem was, and that was my fault. It wasn't that the pantry was overstocked, it was just I wasn't rotating properly. So remember to do that, because sometimes it's not because you have an abundance of stuff going bad because you are buying too much, you just aren't rotating your stuff around. And that was my problem. But now I'm getting better at it, and now we're starting on the refrigerator, and we will see what we do there.